Hey lifters, welcome back. Ashley Vargas here, and today we are going to be talking about the bench press, specifically a lot of major technique issues and technique flaws that I see in the weight room. And then we're also going to talk about how the setup in the body position can create inefficiencies and really hold the lifter back from adding weight to the barbell. The example that I'm going to use today is of one of my clients, and this video is what she submitted when she first started working with me. And when I first start working with a client, I go through and I break down into detail exactly where the inefficiencies are in the lifts, where the weak points are in their lifts, and then we talk about how we are going to fix that going forward. That way we can push past any plateaus and start to add weight onto the barbell. So before we get into the video and lift breakdown, I do want to talk a little bit about the bench press because it really is the most technical lift out of the three power lifts. So your power lifts, of course, are your squat, your bench press, and your deadlift. And the reason why it is the most technical lift, two reasons. One, on a powerlifting platform, when you're going to compete, the bench press has the most commands out of all three. And then the second is on the surface level, it looks like it's just an upper body chest movement. But in reality, when you are bench pressing like a power lifter, it truly is a full body movement. And I'll get into that here in a second. So going back to the commands on the platform. So when you go to compete, you don't just walk up to the platform and do the lift in your own time. There are specific commands that you have to listen for. So with the bench press, there are the most commands out of all three lifts. Your bench press has 3, your squat has 2, and your deadlift has 1. So when you are going onto the platform to complete your bench, once you unrack the bar and you settle the weight, the head ref is going to wait until you are visually ready to start the lift. Once the head ref determines that you are visually ready, they are going to give you the start command. The start command indicates that you are now allowed to start to descend your bar towards the chest. Once that bar gets to the chest and there is no more movement in that barbell, you have to wait until that head ref is going to give you the press command. Once you get the press command, you are able then to start the press. And then once you get to the top and are completely locked out, the head ref is going to give you the rack command. At that point, you are able to take the bar from that locked out position and rack it back onto the rig. So in addition to it being the most technical lift on a powerlifting platform, it is also the most technical lift in training. So on the surface level, as I mentioned before, bench press looks like it's just going to be an upper body, chest, and shoulder movement. However, it is truly, if done correctly, a full body movement. So incorporating the full body helps you, one, stabilize yourself on the bench better. 2, it recruits power and strength from other major muscle groups in the body outside of just the pec. And then it also allows you to make your lift more efficient in terms of the way that you set up. So let's kind of break those down a little bit. So when it comes to just isolating the pec, right? You see bodybuilders do this a lot, right? Because the goal of their sport is aesthetics. Whereas the goal of powerlifting is to lift the most weight as efficiently as possible. So in order to create efficiency, we don't want to, as it relates to muscle groups, we don't want to just isolate very small muscle groups because you're not going to be able to push a lot of weight that way. The more muscle groups that you can recruit in order to push the same amount of weight, you're going to be able to push that weight better and then continuously add weight onto your barbell. So if you've ever seen a powerlifter set up for a bench press, it's often quite dramatic. So creating that kind of typical powerlifting arch can be an event all in itself. So if you look at this photo right here, that it is a professional shot. However, this photo is not staged. This was in the moment me actually getting into my bench press setup. So this is what I look like, frozen obviously, but this is what I do look like. And this is the position that my body gets into when I get into my bench press setup. So it tends to be a little on the dramatic side, but it is very effective. So the whole point of the powerlifting arch is to bring the chest closer to the bar. And that is, in result, going to shorten your range of motion and increase your efficiency. So the closer your chest is to the bar, the less distance you actually have to control and press the weight. So non-powerlifters typically look at this and go, oh, it's cheating. Well, if we circle back to the objective of powerlifting, which is to lift the most weight as efficiently as possible, then it's really not cheating, right? It's actually training smart. So we are trying to put our body in a position that is going to be able to handle max load, but reduce the amount of time that we actually have to handle it. So in addition to creating efficiency and shortening the range of motion, it's also going to, this arch position, it's also going to help you recruit other muscle groups to help generate power in the press. So when you lay flat on a bench press, you don't have a lot of room to actually engage your lats, right? Because if you think at the start of the bench, you want your lats almost like wrapped around the actual bench. And then as you press, they are going to curve up and almost act like, typically the back is more responsible for pulling. However, in the case of the bench press, it's actually going to be a push motion, because if these are your lats, it's going to round forward and help to actually press that bar up off the chest. So you have better recruitment of the lat. And then you also have more recruitment from the lower body. So if you can see in this photo right here, how far back my feet are actually placed. Now, in some powerlifting federations, you are not allowed to have your heel off the bench, so make sure you're checking for that. But some you are. The organization that I lift with most often, I am able to have my heel off the floor. However, the ball of the foot and the toes need to stay in contact with the ground. So with that, I am able to utilize leg drive, which helps to generate power from the lower body. Now, with leg drive, you want to focus on not just pushing your foot into the ground, but you want to push in and away from the rest of the body. So this pressure here is going to generate power and send power up the lower body and into the upper body to help aid and like generate a little bit of momentum in that press. It also helps you to keep more stable and maintain tension throughout your bench press. So now that we've talked a little bit about the mechanics of the bench press, let's go into actually watching my client's video. So again, this is one that she submitted when we first started working together. And there's a lot of opportunity in this video. So as you're watching, I kind of want you to think, what are some things that are really standing out to you? And again, when I first start working with someone, I'm not going to go through every single little detail that we need to adjust right off the bat. That's going to be super overwhelming. So I typically pick out 3 or 4 of the big ones to help to build the foundation and then work on some of the minor details as we go through. So here's the video. It is from a couple different angles. So go ahead and take a look, and then we'll reconvene here in just a second.
All right, you want to switch to the other side?
So as you can see, she definitely has a lot of opportunities, especially based on the few key things that we've talked about already. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over together her lift analysis. So I'm going to talk about some of the few things that I pointed out to her that I really want her to start focusing on, and then some of the things that are definitely an opportunity, but something that we can wait a little bit later to work on until we build those fundamentals. So this is what the analysis looks like. So I offer this for all of my clients at the beginning of a training block and at the end of a training block. That way we can see where the progress has been. I also offer this service separately to people who are not in my coaching program. So if this is something that you're interested in, I will have the details on how you can schedule your lift review in the notes of this video. So I always start by asking the lifter what they feel like the biggest issue is. So, and often like the things that I see as far as like technical or inefficiencies with the setup are going to be what's causing the lifter to feel like these are problems. So she writes, my biggest concern is just knowing if I'm optimizing my lift. I'm not pushing a ton of weight, so I would like to see my numbers go up while knowing I'm setting up in the ideal positions. Also, should probably learn how to breathe and brace better. Breathing and bracing is key to not just powerlifting, but lifting in general. That actually just gave me a good idea for a full nother tutorial. So be on the lookout for that. And then I always like to remind the lifter like what exactly the goal of powerlifting is. So I've said this already, but it bears repeating because at the end of the day, we always need to keep this in mind, because everything that we are doing in training is going to be to allow us to hit this goal. So to lift max weight as efficiently as possible. In order to accomplish this, you need to find the ideal body position that is going to provide max power output, max strength, utilize as many muscle groups as possible, and make your range of motion as short as possible. So the first thing that I pointed out to her was in her grip. Okay. So if you noticed in the video, every single time she would complete a rep, she would let go of the bar and readjust her grip. If at any point in a powerlifting meet you lose contact with your bar or you open up your grip, you are automatically going to get red lighted. Not only is it a rule violation in every federation, however, it's super, super unsafe. But just aside from the grip issue, overall, her grip is very narrow. So this is going to increase your range of motion, forcing you to control your press and control the weight further. So for this particular lifter, she has longer limbs. She's on the taller side, and she's not necessarily tricep dominant. If a lifter is very tricep dominant, I will tend to have a little bit of a closer grip. That way we don't sacrifice a lot of that strength from that muscle group. However, wider for her specifically is going to be better. Now, once you adjust your grip and adjust the width of your grip specifically, it tends to feel really odd and uncomfortable. However, someone who's a little bit newer to lifting, that is the ideal time in order to make those adjustments. That way they can get used to it through training before they actually start competition prep. And I also did indicate, loosening the grip at the top. So overall, to make her lift more efficient, just from a hand placement standpoint, on the barbell, there's a knurling and then there's the smooth little ring on either side. That is the indicator for where you're going to grip your bar. For most federations, 83 centimeters is the widest grip you can have, which is pointer finger on that line. That is a very, very wide grip, and it's very rare that I take someone that wide. Typically, I'll do ring finger on that line. And then for someone who's a little bit more tricep dominant, I'll probably go pinky finger on the line. But for her, since she is so used to lifting so close together, I wanted her just to start with her pinky finger on the line. That way she can get familiar with the movement. So as we scroll down, I gave her an example. So this is an example of ring finger on the line, which, as you can see, fully extends the arm up at the top compared to a soft elbow here. And then it's also going to completely shorten that range of motion. So when we're going into the execution of her bench, especially from the back angle, you can see how flared out her elbows are. They are completely in line with the shoulder, which is taking out the tricep, and it also takes out a significant portion of the pec major and really isolates the front delt and pec minor, which are very weak areas if you just use them on their own and isolate them. And you're potentially leaving a lot of weight off that bar. It also does not put your shoulder in a very stable position. So I recommended to this lifter to change the angle to a 45 degree. So tuck those elbows in a little bit more, and which will allow for more tricep engagement and also help to protect the shoulder and incorporate the full pec in that press. And again, gave her another example of what that would look like. Now with the lower body, okay. I don't know if you noticed in the video, but she was consistently shifting her feet around. Unstable weight is heavy weight, folks. So the more unstable your body is, your bar is just going to follow suit. So you want to make sure that you're creating enough tension and enough stability before you even start your press. So by continuously moving the feet, she's then shaking her hips and then moving side to side on the actual bar. And I don't know if you noticed in the video, we can refer back to it later, but there was a lot of movement in the bar from side to side. And then the consistency of her bar path, there was no consistency in her bar path. It touched her chest at a different spot every single time. So a lot of that could be solved by incorporating leg drive. And then now for her, since she is like so new to this setup and new to lifting in general, there's going to be a lot of mobility things that we're going to need to work on in order to get that arch to be a little bit more prominent. So that was actually some of my suggestions down below. And then again, providing her an example. So I showed this picture earlier, but feet are pulled back, toes are driving into the ground, significant arch. So hips and back are pretty far off that bench, allowing the lats to engage and allowing power to be derived from the lower body. So a couple, and then I'm also going to provide some drills in order to work on all of the things that we had just talked about. So this is kind of where I started her off. And again, there's a lot more that her and I have gotten into at this point. However, I like to start my lifters off with a few things that they can see drastic improvement from and build the foundation versus trying to do everything at once. Now that we've broken all of that down, there's a couple things that you need to keep in mind. Not everyone's lifting opportunity is going to be the same. We all struggle with different issues. We all have different mobility restrictions. We all have different strengths. We all have different weaknesses. And sometimes, and this is actually pretty common, that even if you have the same opportunity, the solution to fix it for you is going to look different than it will for someone else. So you want to make sure to keep all that in mind. But a couple things that we did see in that video that I see a lot when I'm in the weight room is two big things. One, letting go of the bar, like every single rep, like actually letting go of your grip, and then the feet moving all over the place. So both of those things cause instability, and unstable weight is heavy weight. Okay. It makes it so much harder to control the actual bar. It reduces tension in the body if you have any. So it creates a landslide of other issues. And a lot of these things, our body becomes so programmed to just do it that you don't even realize that you're doing it. So I would highly recommend everyone recording their lifts and kind of pointing out and highlighting the things that you're subconsciously doing that you may not even know is causing some issues in your lift. So, but those are the two big ones: feet moving around and the hands like loosening on the bar every single time you rep it. I hope you found this video helpful and got some value out of it today. If you did, let me know by hitting the like button and hitting the subscribe button. If you would like me to review one of your lifts, I did provide the link to schedule your lift review in the notes of this video, so make sure to click on that, and I will see you all in the next one.